What's going on, everybody? Doc from Average Gamer Guys, back yet again, jumping into some Halo Wars 2, jumping into some Voridus, and we're going to do, as we just did for Pavium, we're going to do a 1v1 Blitz deck guide in this video. I will say I've been enjoying trying to, intermix Halo Wars 2 in with Destiny and in with Rocket League and all the other games that I'm playing, and this is the deck right here. So if you aren't already subscribed, I will say please do subscribe, drop a like. Hopefully everybody had a great Halloween. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the change in seasons, and like I said, hopefully you're enjoying still trying to get a little bit of Halo Wars 2 action in. So this is the deck I've been running 1v1s and had some success with it, gotten some wins. It's been pretty consistent. But I do know, and I'll say this up front, the one glaring weakness with Voridus that I see is the lack of good leader powers. And he has good leader powers, but they are all too much focused on trying to use the infusion gel and trying to get that mechanic working. In multiplayer, it works because you have those leader powers and you can use them. They're just timer based. In Blitz, because you end up spending so much either synergy or button presses with specific units, or so much energy trying to get those units going or trying to get those leader powers going, it's just very hard to make work. And we'll talk about that kind of as we going through, but a pretty standard deck setup at front. We've got the chopper and the hunters, as you guys would expect. We do have a scarred grenadiers, which I've actually become, they weren't in my initial build, but they've gone into this build, and they're actually been pretty good for me. They're good against the infantry, they're decent against vehicles, they have the capability to hit air. They do have some standoff, which is pretty good for your infantry units. They're good to set kind of behind a bigger unit, which we'll talk about works here in this deck specifically based on the starting army. And they've just overall been pretty solid. I don't use Gel Siphon very much, just because it seems, again, so hard to get some of these pools of infusion going. The Banshee, as you would expect, this is one card that a lot of people are kind of, one way or the other. People either really like it or they don't. I'm a big fan of it, not necessarily because of the damage or because of its capabilities, but I really like it, especially in 1v1s, because it's probably one of the best units to move around the map and to actually grab points that your opponent has left free. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're a fan of the channel, if you've seen any of other Blitz deck guides, Grunt Mob is awesome, especially since you're getting the 3 units. You really can make some really good work out of those. And finally, we get probably one of the better cards in the deck with the Infused Engineer. Now, this is one where I will actually make and use the infusion gel. The fact that this throws down those infusion gels, and those infusion gel areas are actually quite big. They're great for area denial, and it's nice to finally have a support unit that can at least deal a little bit of damage. That's the best part about this. I never found the engineer shield ability very good, although I did use it. I think this one, to be honest, is just that much better. The fact that you can have this up, a lot of times you're never going to touch it, but those few instances where you can throw a gel down on top of getting some healing going is pretty good. And like I said, target area pretty solid. As always, we've got Suicide Grunts, really because of a lack of leader powers. I'm not even going to talk about the card on screen right now, because if you don't put it in your banished deck, you probably don't have a very good deck. And then Prowling Reaver, is my preferred option for the anti-air, just because they are so good. So Blisterback is another card in here that typically I don't run in 1v1s, just because the energy cost as well as getting them set up, I think they're pretty vulnerable. In this specific deck, and I'll show some options where you could throw other cards in at this slot. In this specific deck, with the lack of leader powers, with us kind of staying away from what Voridus wants you to do, which is to use the infusion gel, I absolutely think you need this, especially for when you get kind of the larger group, kind of spam infantry type units. This thing, as you guys know, absolutely destroys them. So I think this is an easy inclusion, and actually still keeps the energy curve pretty low comparatively. So again, sometimes hard to set up in 1v1s, but if you can get it set up, it's absolutely brutal. Now the Terror Wraith, is probably one of my other favorite cards within Voridus. Just for the sole fact the Infused Mortar, again, is really awesome. This is probably the only other time that you're going to see me use Infusion minus Voridus himself and the Engineer. The Infused Mortar, really good, great AoE on that. And then Shock and Shield, this unit just feels like it definitely carries its weight. It packs the punch that you would expect for the extra energy above a standard Wraith. And it's just really good. All around, they did this one right. I really do like it. And like I said, the Infused Mortar is pretty solid. Definitely had some good success with it. And really like using this, again, comparative to even the Armored Wraith, and then obviously the standard Wraith. This is definitely the option of choice. And for 150 energy, this is pretty much your top tier minus Voridus. So an overall really solid unit. Now with Voridus, I like Voridus. One, I think they did the art on him really awesome. The infusion gel idea is pretty cool, although we did kind of have the same thing with the gas clouds from earlier, but that's just kind of one of those things. Again, infusion's pretty neat. The abilities to give healing, extra damage to infusion is also pretty cool. Voridus himself, though, is a decent leader. I think he's a little overpriced at 230 energy. And again, we get another banished leader that doesn't have the capability to hit air. When I think of a leader, hero unit, I want it to at least have some capability and at least be able to do some damage to just about anything. And then obviously with Voridus, you don't get that. You get the lack of air, the lack of ability to hurt air, which is just pretty detrimental. Now, again, his Salty Earth is pretty cool because he's going to make a very large infusion area. But again, this is kind of going back to the topic of, I think you have units that have the ability to create infusion. You have one leader power that has the ability to create infusion as well. And it's just hard to synchronize all that. And you're spending a lot of energy for something that I honestly don't feel like is very good. So this is the deck snapshot like we've got. Again, it has been working. It's got some good synergy, but that's mostly just because of some of the good additions that we got. And the rest of the deck is pretty well balanced as far as banished cards that we typically see. Now, the one biggest reason I would use Voridus is because of this starting army. He actually has two very solid starting armies. Stormtrooper is among my favorite, though, because again, you get a Terror Wraith, and then the best part is you get two choppers. So you get the capability. A lot of times what will happen for me is I'm taking that Terror Wraith, I'm throwing it at B, and then I'm taking one chopper, I'm throwing it at my first energy spawn, and I'm taking the second one and I'm running it all the way over to the enemies. If they're not fast enough on the draw on their energy, you're going to be able to steal it. And a lot of times what ends up happening for me is I grab my own, obviously. I've got already points on the board because I've got my Wraith sitting at B or A or C, whatever point you choose to have it go to. And then I have my third chopper that's either grabbing their energy or at least grabbing part of their energy. So now I'm eons beyond where I could be as far as energy consumption and being able to pick that energy up. So really like that starting army. The Desolator starting army is also quite good. You get two of your infused engineers, which are really solid. You get Prowling Reaver, which you can never be mad about that. And then you get two of the Grenadiers. The only real reason I think you'd have to keep that entire group relatively close to each other, or basically use them as one basically large unit to move around the map, and it would be pretty significantly difficult to take these guys down. But then you're kind of reliant on still being able to call in a unit. Not the worst thing ever, but definitely something to consider. That's why I like really just using the Stormtrooper. So some of the leader powers you have here, you have Infusion Wake, which is something that can drop down, vortex, damages, and spreads infusion gel. Now, I have three problems with this. One, the infusion gel itself, when it drops in, doesn't do enough damage. Neither does this leader power either, and at 100 energy, that's a pretty significant cost. Two, this leader power does not last long enough. It doesn't let you spread enough infusion gel, it doesn't let you carpet the map. And here's the problem with this. You need to be able to use that infusion gel in order to even use Cataclysm or Invigorating Frenzy, which gives the healing. So that's the problem I have here. Cataclysm can be absolutely brutal, but if you think about it and you don't have a unit that can create the infusion and you're relying on the wake to be able to put it down, you're essentially spending 180 energy or 160 energy with Invigorating Frenzy to even flare those pools up and use them, period. So that's really the significant problem I have with this. You can use the Infusion Mines, but again, they have to be triggered by ground units, and that's really situational for being able to really gain the full benefits out of the Infusion Gel. And that's really, again, where I sit with the problem with this leader is, you know, the best leaders we typically see, at least in my opinion, are ones that have a good basis for, you know, units, have a good, you know, rounded out strategy, and then also have good single or area effect damage dealing leader powers, which this does, but is just too hard to synchronize and to use. Like I said, I like the idea. I like swapping it up, trying to use Infusion Gel. I think that's really cool. It's a good variety, and he brings with him some pretty neat units, but trying to use all of that and synchronize it in Blitz can be a little difficult and a little bit too energy intensive, if you ask me, for the most part. So but this is the deck that we've got. Give me your thoughts, give me your feedback. Please let me know in the comments. As always, again, hopefully you guys had a great Halloween. Hopefully you guys are enjoying, you know, the new DLC leaders, and again, stay tuned. Working on finishing up the edits for all of the different missions on Legendary, so we'll have some guides coming through for that. So as always, Doc from Average Gamer, guys, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you do and you haven't already, like, subscribe, and comment. We really do appreciate it. Catch you in the next one.